Okay, ji, good evening. We left off on this slide yesterday on organizational project management, the differences between projects, programs, and portfolios from the perspective of change, scope, change, planning, management, success, and monitoring. And I left it to you that you should read it out yourself and see what are the differences. You see, uh, whatever the definitions we define, how we define the project and program and portfolio, if you understood that, it will be very easy to understand the differences. For example, for scope it says, project has defined objectives. Naturally, it has defined objective and it is to produce certain deliverable. And scope of the project is progressively elaborated throughout the project life cycle. So, we can enhance to the project scope over the period of time, and it can change, and scope of the project changing means that the product or the deliverable will change. As far as the programs are concerned, listen to this very carefully. Programs have a larger scope, so that scope is not just constrained to the deliverable, and provide more significant benefits. The focus of the program is on benefits. The scope of the program is binded to the benefits, whereas the scope of the project was binded to the deliverables. As far as portfolios are concerned, portfolios have an organizational scope, which is a strategic matter, that changes with the strategic objective of the organization. So, portfolio is tied back to back with the strategy of the organization. You see, if the organization changes its direction, the portfolio has to change also, because it is tied back to back with it. So portfolio will also have to change. That means all the priorities of portfolio will change, and all the feasibilities of current ongoing projects and programs will have to be rehashed, and ultimately with the change in direction of the strategy, there might be certain projects and programs which are no more useful, and they will have to be terminated, and new projects may have to be started. So this is the scope of portfolio. Portfolio scope is tied with the strategy. Similarly, change and planning and all that, you can read that yourself, but this is how this further clarifies the differences between projects, programs, and portfolios. Right. So what are those strategic considerations which makes the organizational direction or the strategy of the organization to change? And we mentioned that already, that this could be the external conditions, the market demand, the customer specifically requiring you to produce something, or technology getting advanced, and your equipment getting old, and you want to come in competition with others. Environmental conditions are changing. There's a social need to create something new. For example, if there is a war, there is shortage of food. So anybody getting into that business would earn a lot. Similarly, this depends upon the social need also, that what kind of projects would be feasible here. So whatever is the situation of the country right now, our social needs will dictate what kind of products are to be sold here. And similarly, the projects will also govern by that. Customer request, technical advancement, or if there is any legal requirement. For example, Government of Pakistan announced that only ISO certified companies will be allowed by government to export. So that means if this regulation is there, then automatically that is binding for all organizations to get into ISO if they want to export. So therefore, this is now the legal requirement, and to meet this legal requirement, they have to bring changes to the system, and that naturally would be through some kind of project or program. Now, the next topic is Project Management Office. Shahan, you asked this question earlier. OPM and PMO are not the same. OPM we have discussed already.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. Now we are discussing the PMO, Project Management Office. is a management structure that standardizes the project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. Now, to give you a fair idea of what a project management office is, let's start from a project itself. If it is a small project and not a very complex project manager is the only person who uh, does everything. As far as the management of the project is concerned, he coordinates with others, he collects reports, he summarizes them, analyzes them, gives orders, whatever. So he is the only person. He's managing everything because this is manageable for him. This is humanly possible for a small project manager to handle everything by himself. But if this was a little complex project manager would not be able to conduct all these duties. So he might need to have an assistant working for him and collecting progress reports from team members, analyzing them, and then giving them to project manager for his decision making or whatever. So if the workload is more and we have to employ more people to set up a kind of a central office which will help the whomsoever is the boss to make better decisions, that would be arbitrarily called a project office. But I am saying this from a simple perspective of a single project, a slightly complex single project. Even project manager can have a small little staff working for him for his convenience. And this team, which is uh, compiling the data and uh, feeding this data upwards in a summarized form to the project manager, this channel can also be used to communicate with the lower staff. So this becomes our office, which is a kind of a post office, which not only communicates downwards but communicates upward. But at the same time, it is not exactly a post office because this processes the data and then distributes it or consolidates it. Therefore, this is the project office. Now, this was the perspective of just a project. But say in our organization, there are only 4 projects running, and these 4 project managers are, reporting to CEO. And daily in the morning they go to CEO and CEO asks them, "Kya karna hai aaj?" Ye wo, and then they also brief him and all that. So maybe they meet once in the morning and once in the evening, and CEO knows everything what is happening in every project. He doesn't need to write it down. He can even remember it. He doesn't have to, call them again and again, because all this data is very simple. It's not very complex. ज़्यादा बड़ी बात है कि he will make small little notes. He will note it down in his diary and whatever, and then he will move on with his life. What if the CEO, is handling hundreds of projects? Rather, I'm not saying CEO is handling. I mean, CEO is running the organization. He is handling the operations also, and this change-related things are also on his head. And he is more interested in project, but there are hundreds of projects. How can he meet hundreds of people daily in the morning and in the evening to get the status of the project? He can't even remember the names of those people, but to talk about the progresses of each project and consolidated picture of all the change related things happening in his organization, that is probably not possible. So, in such an organization, there is a need to have a central office in which some dedicated staff is sitting there for the sole purpose of collecting all this data, summarizing it, and feeding the CEO in whatever format is most comfortable to him for further decision making or for his own knowledge. And similarly, the same office could also be used for downward communication to all the project managers. Now, having said that, We also know and understand that every project manager has a project sponsor. And project manager is actually answerable to the project sponsor. Now CEO is also trying to ask him. So what should he inform the CEO and what should he inform the project sponsor? Why CEO is not talking to him through the project sponsor? That is a very interesting question, because project sponsor is not dealing with one project at only. Project manager is dealing with only one project at a time, but project sponsor may have responsibility of more than one project at a time. Why? Because sponsor's job is not dedicated. Sponsor might be also the director administration in the organization or vice president accounts or whatever, and at the same time he has been given additional responsibility of being the sponsor of a project or more than one project. So he has other jobs to do as well. Therefore, and it is not a dedicated job, that's why we said the sponsor could look after other things. Reason is, sponsor is only busy with the project when he is creating the charter or he is managing by exception. And managing by exception is not happening all the time. It only happens in exceptional conditions and circumstances. And those exceptional situations, and circumstances are already known. You see, when the charter was being created, there was no project manager before that. And this responsibility of the project was solely on the shoulder of the sponsor. Once he wrote the charter and gave the responsibility downwards to the project manager, he can sit back and relax. Now project sponsor doesn't have to micromanage the project or do anything. Project manager will present him a plan. That is the exception. Otherwise he is doing other jobs. Now exception is that if project manager communicates with him for some approval, for some permission, this is the exception. Or for some change, it may be change request, it may be anything. So those are the points when he will interact with the project manager, and those points are called the exceptions. And exceptions will not happen there. And this is the best way of managing anything, managing by exceptions. This is the antidote of the micromanagement. A boss who does not understand what to communicate and when to communicate, he will try to boss around all the time and rather create hindrance in the job of the project manager. He won't be delegating, always he's trying to control everything, and whenever project manager wants to do something, he says, I'll tell you क्या करना है. वो नए order देके चला जाएगा और project manager मुंह देखता रह जाएगा मेरे से तो हुआ क्या. And ultimately the job will suffer. So once you have assigned a project manager, let him do his job. Project manager says, sir, I will complete this project in 5 phases, and at the end of every phase I'll get it inspected by you. So he has already defined the exceptions. At the end of every phase he will come to you, and then you have your say. Whatever you want to say, accept it, reject it, or you want to change everything, or you want to kill the project for that matter, terminate the project at that point. Whatever you want to do, you can do. Moreover, the sponsor also wants to keep an eye and watch on the project, and he must have defined his own key performance indicators. So if he wants to check those key performance indicators, the exceptions can be defined for that. What kind of report he wants, when he wants. He says, I write in the middle of a phase, I want to get this report and I want to visit your, okay, fine. We are not stopping him to visit. We are stopping him to micromanage. We are very happy with the macro management. We have no problem with that. So he will be, ultimately the boss of the project manager is the project sponsor. And if CEO has to talk, he should be talking to the project sponsor. But what will happen in a complex organization? There are hundreds of projects. The CEO calls all the sponsors and asks them what is happening on the projects. Each sponsor is dealing with 4 to 5 projects each. Everybody will give his story, although that would be a summarized story of all the 5 projects. Uh, but CEO will be left in a state of confusion because he does not have a single consolidated view of the whole picture. He has got a consolidated view of 5 projects and 5 projects and 5 projects and so on and so forth. Although it takes less time to deal with say 20 stakeholders rather than 100 project managers, but this does not give him the whole picture. And even if he calls all the project managers, they will give him detailed report on every project. But again, who is going to consolidate it for him? If there were only few projects, CEO would say, I'll do it myself. I understand the things. I can even remember the things. I can even draw my own diagrams. But if it is hundreds of projects and programs also running around, then probably he needs support. So that support he develops in form of a project management office. This project management office not only uh, uh, supports the upper boss, that is the CEO, and give him the consolidated report, help him in designing, making decisions, but also serves as a conduit for transferring information down to the project. So this is one thing. Then, as a PMO is existing in an organization, project managers may come to PMO for some help. They may need some assistance. Maybe let's take on the very menial jobs. Maybe they want some drawings to be made or some letters to be typed or printed about the project, and they do not have the resources for that. So this central office is open to all. So any project manager can come, and maybe a photostat machine is provided there, a computer and other typing equipment is provided, some draftsmen are available in the PMO. So all the projects may not have to hire their separate teams and staff for doing these kinds of jobs, and such administrative work can be centrally being done in the PMO. So this is a menial level of job. The next level could be that the PMO is a kind of a center of excellence. If the PMO is old and it has been functioning for quite some time, then probably it holds a lot of data. All the record of previous projects, the library of all the rules and regulations, all the governance structures. So everything which is good for project to know is actually held by the PMO. So project managers and his relevant staff would like to visit PMO for several reasons. For learning something new, for getting some standard, for even PMO can provide counseling and mentoring services. I am not saying that PMO becomes the boss of the project managers. This is a support office. It can provide support. It may not order anyone, but project manager may bring in his problem, and a senior level person might be sitting there in the PMO who has a lot of experience, and he can ask him what could be the solution. So whatever solution this person in PMO advises the project manager is not an order from the organization. This is just a support from them, and project manager is free to make his own decision based on whatever he has learned from PMO. So this is a kind of a hub from where all the information can be gained. Okay, so what is PMO doing then? PMO, to satisfy the requirements of the CEO, would require all the projects to submit him all their progress reports and data, which he will analyze, consolidate, summarize, and put up in the desired report format what the CEO wants to see. So this is the basic job. And this is why this PMO office was formed. CEO says, I want report in this format daily. This report should be in my office at 9 a.m. So he prepares that report and puts it in front. The problem is CEO doesn't know how PMO is getting all those reports, because those reports are when he asks hundreds of projects to give him the progress report, everybody has his own way of reporting. One person is reporting in a tabular format, one is sending graphs, one is sending the data itself. Everybody has its own, way of working. There is no standardization in these reports. How to solve this problem? As I said, PMO doesn't have any authority as such primarily. So how does he, do this, that all the projects should be able to submit the report in a single format? Does he have the authority for giving them the format?
You should have the authority to give a format in case it is designed like that.
Okay. The PMO is working under the direct order of the CEO. He can always go back to CEO and tell him, sir, I do produce the reports for you, but problem is people are not sending me reports in the desired format. And I have devised a format. Please mandate it that they should be submitting their reports exactly to that. So by the order of a CEO, he can take a part of that and he can mandate it for all people from the CEO. So what he has done now, he has made his life much easier. Now the data is easily convertible and analyzable, and therefore his life is much more easier. But just imagine the life of a project manager. 100 project managers, every project manager coming from a different background, from a different background experience, and he is following his own methodology, his own standards. There is no standardization of project management in this organization. PMO has made his life easier. He is not really concerned about how the project managers are doing it. Should he not be bothered about it? Being a central office, always handling the affairs of projects, should he not take on the responsibility of standardizing all the documentations which can be used in the project and centrally mandated by the order of CEO? So this becomes an integral duty and responsibility of PMO, that एक organization structure है ना जी छोटा सा. This is an organizational structure which is operational in nature, but the purpose of this structure is to, support all the existing projects and programs, and naturally to subordinate under the CEO. Therefore, this is again a wonderful opportunity to standardize all the project management practices. Now let us see what all will be done here. Project manager would have data about all the policies, procedures, rules, regulations, methods, methodologies, templates. We just talked about it. Templates, formats, and all this. This all data will be held within. And what is this data? This is the organizational process assets. These are called organizational process assets. So he will not only be the custodian of this data, but he would standardize the formats and templates. and procedures. Rather, I would say he would be responsible for ensuring that the project and program governance mechanisms are imposed, are developed and imposed. उनके लिए एक template, एक format provide करेगा. I will talk later about the governance and all that, but generally speaking, organizational process assets are maintained by the PMO for all the projects, and it provides them a standardized formats, templates, and procedures to do the project work. So I said the first responsibility of PMO is to support the boss. And naturally, now I'm talking about the CEO, and it looks like I'm talking about a centralized PMO of an organization. Yes, it is true, but PMO could exist at any level. It could be a PMO of a department. It could be a PMO of the whole organization. It could be a PMO within a program or within a portfolio. Or, as I gave you the very first example, a PMO within a project, which we call the project office. So we have to see what is the domain of the PMO you are talking about. If it is a project in which a PMO exists, then the boss of the PMO is the project manager. If it's an organization, it might be the CEO. And there could be more than one PMOs existing in an organization. One PMO at the center level, then every department has a PMO. Then, you go to Mobilink, they have PMOs everywhere. Every department has, finance department has their own PMO. Every department has their own PMO. So PMOs could be there because everyone might have their own projects running. If that be the case, then PMOs could be distributed. PMOs could be centralized. PMOs could be in the hierarchy of portfolio programs and projects also. So wherever it is, the first function is to support the boss. Second function is to act as an information conduit downwards. Then to provide support downwards, general support, and then standardize the organization, standardize the templates and formats, implement some of, organize the library of the organizational process as if people can come from anywhere and consult and get access to those resources. Then he can also provide the counseling and mentoring services for the subordinate units. And finally, he can also provide the training. He can do the training need assessment specific to the project. I'm not talking about the organizational resources. Specific to the project, different project, and provide them various kinds of trainings and other things. Standardize the software, project management software, provide training for that or for various other topics. So PMO could take on as many roles. And the biggest role, and naturally, as a PMO grows, its maturity grows, it moves on from a very passive role to an active role. And there is an extreme which is that PMO is so good, so mature, that organization has given him authorities to manage the projects and programs by itself. बात बनती है कि नहीं बनती? Delegation. PMO is all in all. Meaning what? That it may have certain functions of a portfolio. बंदे भी इधर उधर कर सकता है, ठीक है, और प्रोजेक्ट्स की प्रायोरिटीज भी ला सकता है. So that kind of authorities can be given, or all in all भी हो सकता है that all the project managers or all the project sponsors are made to report to PMO. मैंने ये आखिर में इसलिए कहा कि you should not get confused. You should not have an idea that PMO always controls the projects and all the project managers always report to him and he is the one who orders them. Because if I said it before, then it would mean that there is no need for sponsor, there is no need for anything else. I am just talking about an extreme function that a PMO in its highest form of maturity could be made responsible completely for the conduct of the projects. Such like PMOs may exist but is not preferred. It is only happening in those organizations which are extremely mature. But what is the problem with it is that this is such an attractive structure that PMO should be all powerful, that when an organization starts a PMO, the first thing they do is they adopt this extreme model. And what happens is that the man who is in charge of a PMO may be a fresh graduate, and he's placed over all the project managers who are from middle to senior level. And this person with no experience whatsoever exercises the CEO's authority and starts beating around the bush. He doesn't know anything. And on the other hand, he has not performed all those duties which I have just explained to you. PMO must standardize, must do this, must provide support, must be humble and all that. He has done nothing, and he has just gotten a cane and started beating everyone with it. I will report to CEO, I'll do this, I'll do that. So this is what happens in Pakistan. Here we see that when wherever first of all, people don't know what a PMO should do. There is just a fashion in organization that oh, nowadays we should have a PMO. Let's make a PMO. So they make a PMO and then give a lot of authority to one person without uh, even clearly defining what his other roles and responsibilities. So his basic roles and responsibilities are never done, never completed. And he starts disrupting the projects and programs underway. Resultantly, such like PMOs do not survive long and are closed down within 1 year. And the things go back to the old way of working. Another reason for PMOs not working is projects are the earning members of the family. PMO is not an earning member. Who is funding the PMO? So PMO cannot exist for long. There has to be a policy mandated that out of the budget of every project and program, there must be a tax cut out of it which will stream into the PMO office. So this is exactly the same model of public money. So if you are using my money and you are ordering me around with that, project managers won't like it. So therefore, Shahan, I'm sorry.
Sir, what I understood from your discussion is PMO is a sort of overhead which can only be, possible or only is desirable when you are making a lot of profit from a lot of projects.
No, not profit. But I'm just saying if PMO.
Cut the budget from other projects to sustain this PMO.
Yes, somebody has to sustain it. So whether you are making profit or not, but from a budget of every project and program under the PMO, there must be some aid which should be given for the sustenance of the PMO. Because if the projects who are earning, because projects have budget, PMO doesn't have a budget. If projects are not giving anything to PMO, ultimately PMO will start deteriorating. Maybe you started a PMO now because a big project was starting and there was a big funding available, so you gave him some money to establish a PMO. PMO was established. That project finished in a year or two. Now, from where the funding for PMO is coming now? So PMO will dwindle and it will vanish into nothingness. Got it?
Yes, correct, sir.
Okay. After having given you this story, let us see what PMO does. And because I have given you this story, now you will be able to better understand what is written here. It says responsibilities of a PMO can range from providing project management support function to actually being responsible for direct management of a project. These are the two extremes. These are the two extremes. One is a humble beginning, just providing support to all the projects. And the other is direct management of the control. It is overall in control of all the project, can order around the project. But I said, generally speaking, we don't do that. We let the sponsor handle it. Sponsor of the project is actually the boss of the project manager. Now, when you put the projects directly under the PMO, you mean you are uh, eradicating the project sponsors altogether. You don't need project sponsors anymore. You want to say that probably for all the projects, the project sponsor will be PMO. That is probably what you are saying, which is a difficult situation. 100 projects, sponsor for 100 project managers. If a PMO is a sponsor for 100 project manager, will it be efficiently working? Probably not. PMO should also think that this is a big responsibility. He should not take it on and let the sponsors do their job, right? Similarly, the further extreme could be that there are no project managers and PMO is managing all the projects itself. Now this is most dangerous situation, but because PMO has got that kind of expertise, so we can make an allowance and say that in case a project manager goes missing, PMO can assign a project manager from its staff on temporary basis or permanent basis. But if I am doing that, I would say that it should be temporary and we should still be looking for a good project manager. As soon as the new project manager comes, this temporary project manager assigned from the PMO would be going back to PMO. PMO will have a number of project managers sitting there who will be analyzing and doing things. It's a complete ops room prepared in the PMO. When we did it in Nadra, we physically established our ops room. That was a complete room, like just a war room, and it had, all the reports like this chart and all the reports on the walls, computers on the sides, and all the stations were reporting to us in this, and we were just plotting the graphs and things, putting the data into the archives and all that. So that was the place, the center, which was always current about whatever is happening around the world, around the country, in our centers in Nadra. And therefore we could always report to the chairman in an instance what is happening. Rather later on we developed a system for online reporting and everything, so he doesn't have to come down to the room and it's right on his computer, all the current reports and statuses. So if you understand this, you will see this is one extreme, support function, and the other extreme is the direct management of a project. So anything in between could be the PMO's responsibility. PMO integrates the data and information from corporate strategic projects and evaluates how higher level strategic objectives are being fulfilled. So like we said, a project manager should understand the strategy, a program manager should understand the strategy because they have to align with that strategy. So PMO should understand the strategy and strategic objectives of the organization. And PMO is a natural liaison between the organization's portfolios, programs, and projects. If it is a central PMO, it is having oversee whatever is monitoring everything. What is going to what is portfolio is asking what, who is giving him what, and how it is being. So there could be more than PMOs, but if it is a central PMO, then it will know everything. There is a possibility that portfolio has its own PMO, program has its own PMO, and things like that. So A PMO is a natural liaison between all these and a central place where the performance corporate measurement systems are held, like balance scorecard and all. Okay. Projects supported or administered by the PMO may not be related other than by being managed together. I said every PMO will have a domain, the organization domain or the department domain or whatever domain. So within that domain, all the projects and the programs would be reporting to it for the purposes of summarization. And uh, all the projects and programs under its domain are not supposedly all related. They could be related, they may not be related. So just like a portfolio, we define this thing like in portfolio, things are, project and programs are not supposed to be related. They may be related, they may not be related. Similarly, in PMO, although its function is different from portfolio, but many projects are reporting to it from the summarization point of view. Therefore, they may not all be related. This is one thing, but they all are managed by, somehow managed by PMO. PMO, as we said, direct authority, can be delegated authority to act as an integral stakeholder and a key decision maker. Extreme powers. You are giving it a powers of kind of um, the portfolio sometimes. Portfolio deals with the strategic distribution of the resources. But generally, the lower level uh, resources, like, general distribution of people amongst various project resources, we normally give this responsibility to PMO, that you divide the people among the projects. But the strategic resources are still held by the portfolio, like a single bulldozer, and it is required by 5 projects to whom it should be given. So because prioritization is done by the portfolio, therefore he handles it. Sometimes we even give the function of prioritization of the projects and all to the PMO. So sometimes he can be working as a portfolio. So there are various possibilities. I'm not making it a rule that it will always perform like a portfolio. Naturally, it will differ from one place to other place. The functions of PMO would be different in different organizations, but at least you must understand what all could be the functions of the PMO. It may have the authority, first of all, it will always be the integral stakeholder of all the projects under its domain. It might be the key decision maker during the beginning of each project. It may be allowed to make recommendations for every project or to terminate projects or to take action as required to keep business objectives consistent. Remember, I am not saying that is always the case. Special powers, if given to this PMO, he will exercise the powers of maybe the CEO or the portfolio. So terminating the project is something like that. PMO may be involved in selection, management, and deployment of shared or dedicated project resources. So PMO anyways deals with the resources, but then about the strategic resources, yes, he may also be responsible, made responsible as a special case for those things also. Now, PMO, PMO will, जी आप कुछ कह रहे हैं?
Trying to wonder about that. What
क्या चीज हमारी फंस गई है? क्या मुसीबत है? जी
I was wondering
अब नहीं आ रही आपकी बात
आवाज नहीं आ रही is currently unmuted. I was wondering that I was wondering that project management office in a way assumes portfolio management responsibilities in a very in a limited manner, to a limited level, like distribution of resources, not the strategic resources, but the technical ones, and to control or prioritize the requirements of the projects. So, can we think on considering it to be a replacement of the portfolio manager?
Not at all, not at all.
So, how do we differentiate? If there's a question on the exam about a situation whereby they ask us that is it the responsibility of the portfolio manager or the project management office? That is going to be a tricky situation. How to handle that situation? Okay.
Right. You see, Shahan, आवाज आई ना आपको?
Sir, I could hardly understand. I think Adil is asking these project managers being there, program managers and portfolio managers, and then this PMO being there. So the decision making is somewhat ambiguous.
बिल्कुल. लेकिन आपको आवाज तो ठीक आ रही थी ना उनकी?
No sir, आवाज पहले से भी deteriorate हो गया है. I think the earlier was okay. If
Okay.
Adil can speak a bit louder, then that would be fine.
Okay, okay. बस इनको इसी पर रिलाय करना पड़ेगा. तो मेरा ख्याल है आप कुछ आपके स्पीकर से भी सही नहीं है आवाज आ रही. अच्छा, एनीवे जी, तो पहली बात तो ये है कि PMO is no replacement for the procurement, अपना portfolio management. We are just saying that some functions to ease the load of portfolio, we can give some functions to the PMO. Like initially, we can give the non-strategic resources, or you can say the strategic resource sharing responsibility to the PMO. As far as the important resources are concerned, where they will go and how they will go, according to the prioritization of the project. Prioritization of the project is always the responsibility of both. It should not, and generally it should not be PMO's domain. Yes, portfolio can tell that priority to the project, to the PMO, as if it can follow it. And generally the smaller level resources that is delegated to PMO, that their distribution and management, whether this person works 4 hours on project A and 4 hours on project B, to ensure that this can be done by the PMO. But just because portfolio has got more workload, and let us assume that portfolio management, they do not have separate staff, because the dilemma of portfolio management is similar to the dilemma of PMO. Portfolio management also do not have any funding of its own. Its projects and programs, they do have funding, but as such portfolio doesn't have a funding. So portfolio is more important than PMO. So we first try to sustain the portfolio. But let us assume that portfolio doesn't have enough resources and there is a PMO already existing in the organization. Why not use the resources of PMO for portfolio purposes? Right? So under portfolio, the staff PMO can be working for them. This is one scenario. The other scenario could be that portfolio has its own dedicated PMO. CEO has a separate PMO, but portfolio has its own dedicated PMO. That PMO is only responsible for performing the duties of the portfolio staff. Collecting the data, analyzing it according to the portfolio, prioritizing the data, and managing the strategic resources. This could be a portfolio level PMO. Or organizational level PMOs can also be of various tiers and levels. There can be an enterprise-wide PMO. There could be an organizational PMO. There could be a corporate PMO. This all depends upon the structure of your organization. What type of control you want to exercise, but remember portfolios are, PMO is established for organizational project management, portfolio program and project. It is not for some operational work. I have seen PMOs running in completely operational organizations which are doing no project, but this is a PMO. What is this PMO doing? They have different names for this PMO. In Pakistan government, they call it PMU, Project Management Unit. And even in the donor agencies also, United Nations and all that, they also call it Project Management Unit. Probably government has taken it from there. So there, as far as the names of the PMO concerned, there could be hundreds of names. I have a list of about 40 different names by which you call PMOs. You call it project office, project unit, project management office, project management unit, program management office, program support office, program unit, portfolio management office, enterprise management office, corporate management office, and so on and so forth. All these different types of names are for the PMO. But generally we are trying to understand that PMO at different levels may have different responsibilities. Now we have already understood the roles of the PMO. Let us see what are the different types of PMO. And you would then be able to judge it better which type of PMO suits your environment. Okay, let me see if you can see this diagram, this slide. Right. So there are three types of PMOs as described in PMBOK. Supportive PMO, controlling PMO, and directive PMO. Now these three kinds of PMOs are exactly according to the hierarchy. The basic level of PMO is just a humble supporting PMO. Then there might, the second level, the controlling PMO, is the one who is making policies, procedures, and enforcing those policies and procedures onto the projects. That is a controlling PMO. And directive PMO is all powerful PMO who is in command of all the projects. This is a directive PMO. If at all you have to travel on this journey, first create a supporting PMO, then slowly and steadily, when you have established the whole infrastructure, then you can convert it into a controlling PMO, and ultimately, as the ideal situation occurs, you could make it a directive PMO. So these three kinds of PMOs are described in subsequent slides. Supporting PMO provides a consultative role to project by supplying templates, best practices, training, access to information, lessons learned from other projects. This type of PMO serves as a project repository. Degree of control provided by PMO is low. It doesn't control, it just serves. It provides you the templates and there is and that, provide you help, counseling, training, whatever. But it is a passive role. It is not controlling you. Controlling PMO provides support and require compliance with it through various means. Mandated that you are supposed to abide by the instructions provided by the PMO. So compliance may involve adopting specific project management framework or methodologies, or using specific templates or forms and tools, or conformance to the organizational governance. Degree of control by the PMO is moderate. Directive PMO takes control of the projects. By directly managing the projects, the degree of control provided by the PMO is high. So after all the previous discussion, you would be better equipped now to understand the difference between these three types of PMOs. So as I was discussing earlier, the primary function of a PMO, which you can rehash according to your own requirements in your organization, because every organization defines these functions as they please. But I am just giving you the whole picture. Managing shared resources across all projects administered by PMI. Those resources, there are some resources which are dedicated to a project, which are not to be shared. They are just available for any one project. There could be some resources which are shared. So a project can take care of its dedicated resources, but those shared resources someone else has to control, and PMO is the only body who can keep a track of where the resources are going. Then identify and develop project management methodology, best practices and standards. Or adopt these standards. Like you can say that our PMO follows PMBOK framework, or we follow some methodology, or these are our best practices. So whatever those are, whichever have been picked, would be mandated by this PM. It can provide coaching, mentoring, training and oversight. It can monitor compliance with the project management standards, policies, procedures, templates via project audits. So it can do project audits also and see who is not complying. So it can ensure compliance, monitoring compliance. Then develop and manage project policies and procedures. That is a support function. Then coordinating the communication across the project. Every project will have a communication plan for working within the project. But if there are many projects in a domain and they have to intercommunicate with the project, other projects, then that communication framework or mechanism or communication plan would be prepared by me. Difference between a project manager and PMO: naturally, project manager is only responsible for his project and he looks after the interests of the project and he works fully for the project objectives, whereas the PMO pursue different objectives और उसकी requirements are different. All of these efforts are aligned with the strategic need of the organization. Like project manager focus on the specific project objective, whereas PMO manages major program scope changes which may be seen as potential opportunities to better achieve business objectives. So higher role, a little higher role. Managers control their project resources, whereas PMO optimizes the use of shared organizational resources. How best you can use these shared resources to, get maximum production. Project managers manage the constraints of the individual project, whereas PMO manages the methodologies, standards, overall risks, opportunities, metrics, and interdependencies among projects at the enterprise level. Okay, this completes the topic 1.4. Any questions, Shahan?
No, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Dani, please.
Okay. The harder part we are over with because it was difficult to understand portfolio, program, project, PMO, OPM. If you have understood these things, then we are through the major thing here. Now let us talk about the relationship between the project management and the operations management and the strategy, organizational strategy.
How much emphasis is laid on the questions from these areas like portfolio management? How much emphasis is made in the paper on the questions from portfolio, program, and project management and their differentiation, or are these concepts only required to understand?
No. Actually, yes, they are required to understand, but these concepts are behind the whole PMBOK. So the scenarios are given to you. You can be asked, the portfolio manager has prioritized your project as number 5 and this and that and such like this. Aap kya kare? So till the time you don't have these concepts, you may attempt the questions wrong. The question may be from the scope or time or cost or whatever, but the scenario backwards might carry the program manager or portfolio or OPM or all these concepts.
So you must be these are basically the embedded concepts
exactly
that are expected to be embedded
of course.
To answer or to appreciate a question.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't live without them. They are important. But naturally,
they're extremely important.
Yes.
This is the first time ever I really found out. Because I've been working in a factory.
Right.
We called it a PCO, Production Control Office.
Right.
In fact, that office was providing us templates. Exactly. And providing us, asking for the feedbacks and the updates.
Yes.
And presenting it to the chairman, to the managing director of the factory, and we were all, running around and asking things from the PCO and giving things back to the PCO, and PCO was poking its nose onto our head, going down our throats all the time. Exactly. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And the same kind of scenario that we were discussing was there already. Okay. So I have a clear idea of this PCO or whatever you call it, project management office. But this concept has to be at the back of the mind to handle the questions that come.
Actually, we will talk about a few more things like project governance, business value, organizational governance, stakeholders role. Those will further clarify this thing because whatever is happening in the organization is under the organizational governance. So whatever office you are mentioning, that was a need for the organizational governance. For better governance, this is a checkpoint that plays on production. So these kind of setups would be different in different organizations, but they would be required. So there has to be some coordination between the projects and operations and production. Everything is happening within the organization, and the project must, as we say, aligned with the strategy. So project governance will be in an alignment with the organizational governance, and this governance also has to travel downwards. So that governance mechanism also we'll discuss later. Right. So project and operations first. Are you able to see the change of slide? No. You are not.
No.
No also. Right. So this will talk about the operations and projects. What is operations management? What are the operations stakeholders? Then in organization and project management, we'll see project-based organizations, link between project management and organizational governance, relationship between project management and organizational strategy. Each one of these topics are extremely important. Again, the same nature as the portfolio program and all that. Operations are the organization's function performing the ongoing execution of activities that produce same product or provide a repetitive service. So this is not project. Operations are normal happenings in the organization. They are planned and they are tailored in a standard operating procedure, and if you follow that, you will be repetitively able to produce certain product over the period of time, and it is repetitive in nature. So you follow the SOP and you keep doing it, so every time you will be producing a consistent result. That is the benefit of documenting the processes. That is exactly why ISO asks you to document your processes, because no matter how good or bad your processes are, but if everybody is following the SOP, everybody is following a written procedure, then you will always be producing the similar result. That is what consistency means. And that means some quality, not the best or good quality, but you are following or you are achieving some quality. So if you want to improve the quality, you improve your SOPs. You continuously improve your processes and procedures, and ultimately you keep maturing and you keep excelling on the ladder to जैसे कहते हैं ना कि कंपटीशन में ऊपर maturity की तरफ जाते हैं. And ISO doesn't talk about maturity. ISO talks about the good practices, and ISO tells you to just be consistent and continuously improve. Whereas CMMI, capability maturity model, checks your maturity in processes, how good you are in comparison with others. There is a competition. When there is a competition, you mature accordingly. Now if you continuously improve, you will be better than him and then better than him, and you keep moving up. As you move up in the ladder, your level rises in maturity. So that is the maturity model. Operations management is responsible for overseeing, directing, controlling all the business operations. Operations evolved to support the day-to-day business. So operations are responsible only for the day-to-day business. They are not responsible for projects. Operations are necessary to achieve strategic and tactical goals of the business. Naturally, everything I said in the organization, whether it is operations or project, have to be aligned with the strategic objective, and ultimately the strategic or tactical goals of the business are to be achieved even by the operation. उसका अपना purpose. Though temporary in nature, projects can help achieve the organizational goals when they are aligned with the organizational strategy. वो भी मदद कर रहा है. Project is contributing itself in achievement of the organizational objective. Operation is, contributing for itself. So all of these things, everything rather, happening within the organization must be aligned with the organizational strategy as if they can contribute to the business goals. Organizations sometimes change their operation, product or system by creating strategic business initiatives. Now I am not saying that it is written in PMBO. Whenever there is a change in the operations, that is through strategic business initiatives. And what are the strategic business initiatives? These are the projects. Strategic business initiatives are projects or programs. So if you want to bring change in your operation, it has to be through projects and programs. Or for that matter, we can say through organizational project plan. Operations management is a subject area that is outside of the scope of the formal project management. Therefore, because operation management is not included in project management, and this book or this standard only talks about project management, so this is not within that scope and it is not discussed a lot here. This is the only mention we are having in this chapter about the operations management. Otherwise, this is not generally referred. But naturally, you might get a question that there is this kind of operation going on and you are a project manager. You are a project manager and you have to see where all this thing fits. So if you understand that all the operations are also aligned with the same organization strategy, and you sometimes have to work for operations, projects are coming out of operations sometimes. The needs of the project are to improve the operations or the function, existing SOPs, So for the improvement of that, we may start certain initiatives. It involves ensuring the business operations continue efficiently by using the optimum resources needed and meeting customer demand. So this is the scope or purpose of the operations management, that the business operations continue efficient by using optimum resources needed and meeting the customer demand. It is concerned with managing processes that transform inputs into outputs. Inputs may have materials, components, energy or labor, and outputs could be the product, goods, services or results. Now, what are the similarities here between the projects and operations? Both require to be done by people. Both requires resources. Both are constrained by limitation of resources. Both are required to be planned, executed and controlled. Both are required to be planned, executed and controlled. But project is a temporary endeavor, therefore it needs to be started also and it needs to be stopped also. So it has a start and it has an end. But operations do not have start and an end. Both are aligned with the organization's strategic objective. Then what passes on between project and operation? Deliverables and knowledge pass between these two. Now occurs through transfer of project resources to operations toward the end of the project. जब project खत्म होता है तो operations को handover होती है. उसमें resources can be there. It could be the product or service or whatever, or SOPs, whatever. So whatever the project has created ultimately shifts back to the operation. And when the project starts, at that point, through a transfer of operation resources to project at the start of the project. When the project has to start, it needs certain resources to start the work. Maybe certain expertise, certain knowledge. So that knowledge, expertise and all comes from the operations. Though it is not part of operations, but people and resources are assigned to the project from operational side. And once project has done its job, those resources are reimbursed back to those projects, and whatever the project has produced, those are also given back to the operations. So these are the similarities. What are the differences? Project requires to be managed by a project management knowledge, whereas operations require business process management or operations management kind of a thing. Projects are temporary undertakings, whereas operations are permanent work. Projects are temporary assignments, whereas operations are ongoing nature of operations. Projects produce something unique, whereas operations produce repetitive outputs. The resources in project are temporary. They are only for the duration of the project or even less time. Whereas operations, if there is a finance department, you might see a person serving there for last 15 years. So there are permanent staff and they have got affiliations. They have got lifelong stories. The people coming to project for just 6 months, they cannot develop those kinds of intimacies and loyalties which people in operations have. That makes it one of the big challenges. You are asking the project to do the unthinkable. Great challenges you are giving to the project, and the staff which gets to the project is completely stranger to each other. Maybe completely stranger. So they have to work in this diverse and rather averse situation and still perform better than operations. So this is a big challenge for the project manager to get the job done there. Okay, projects are executed according to the project management. As probably I have been mentioning, rather I'll be talking more about it. Whatever you develop in the project management plan is what you follow in execution of the project. You cannot do anything which was not given in the project management plan. If it cannot be done, then it has to be a change request. Otherwise, you have no authority whatsoever in execution to not to follow project management plan and do something on your own, because that would result in something which is not recorded, not done through the proper change request. In operations, like in projects, we follow the project management plan. In operations, we follow the SOPs. Projects attain their objective and then they are terminated, whereas operations keep sustaining the business. They are the lifeblood of the organization. Operations go on forever. Project concludes when its specific objectives have been met, whereas operations adopt a new set of objectives and the work continues. Now, what project did was, project delivered, it met its objectives, had delivered and it was closed. Now this delivery, these objectives are met, they have now been adopted into the SOPs and now they will be followed forever by the operations. Intersection I have already discussed. Okay. Jisha Khan, any problems till now?
No, sir. That beautifully you defined the difference between operations and projects, sir. That was nice.
Right. So let's move on to the operational stakeholder. Mind it, I am not talking about the project stakeholders right now. We will be talking about project stakeholders later. Similarly, in this chapter we will talk about the organizational governance, not the project governance. Project governance will be discussed in the next chapter. So here we are talking about the bigger concepts, like who are the operational stakeholders? Stakeholders I define as somebody who has anyone or everyone, anyone who has anything to do with the project. No matter that is, this stakeholder can affect or can be affected by it. He can be, that effect could be positive or negative. This is big or small, the stakeholder himself. So here we are not talking about the project stakeholder. Here we are talking about the operational stakeholder. So who are the people who are the stakeholders to this business? Not the project, but this whole business, this whole organization. So maybe whatever we are producing, we have customers, we have government bodies, we have political lobbyists, we have internally we have the staff members, we have different departments. So whatever anybody has to play a role in the organization, whether directly or indirectly, they all are the stakeholders. But if somebody has nothing to do with the project, sitting on sidelines and he has absolutely nothing to gain from the project and nothing to give to the project, such like people would not be considered as stakeholders. So the stakeholders, need for stakeholders who perform and conduct the business operation are important considerations in projects that will affect their future work and endeavor. Project managers, now what should the project manager do about these stakeholders, operational stakeholders? Project manager who considers and appropriately include operational stakeholders in all phases of projects gain insight and avoid unnecessary issues that often arise when their input is overlooked. Now, what should the project manager do before he can identify the stakeholders for his project? He must look at the operational stakeholders and see who could impact his project. First of all, it will help him identify his stakeholders. The wider operational stakeholders are available. Moreover, when he will communicate with them and coordinate with them, he will understand them. He will understand their problem. He will gain insight and he would know which stakeholders are going to be impacting him or who can be impacted by the project this project manager is expected to do. and thus we can avoid unnecessary issues that often arise with their input is overlooked. Identification of stakeholder, wide identification is very important. We are not really very keen about it. First of all, nobody cares about the stakeholder in real life. We don't really, want to talk about stakeholders. We want to care about stakeholders. So we are completely insolent about it, ignorant about it. So what in some modern organizations, again, when I say this, I mean they just use, they want to use, and they like to use slangs. Anything in fashion would we use? We have a PMO, we have this, we look after stakeholders. No, dialogues. But do they really do it? That is necessary. So the stakeholder, if you are identifying, it is not just a matter of formality that you say, okay, government of Pakistan is our stakeholder, Falana is our stakeholder. The only big people, big guns, big shots, you just make them your stakeholder, 4 or 5 stakeholders, khana puri ke liye kafi hai, chalo, let's go on, let's move on with it. The story is made. This is not the matter of story. Stakeholders could be the person who has iota of a benefit to seek from your operations or iota of contribution making to your business operations. That person is a stakeholder and must be considered in the list of stakeholders. This is not just 4 or 5 major stakeholders we talk about. We must consider anyone and everyone. Anyone and everyone who can impact or can be impacted by the consequence of your project. Rather, there is an addition to the definition. It says anyone who perceives himself to be affected by or affecting your project. Meaning, he is not actually the stakeholder, but he thinks that I will be affected by this. So, उसकी perception है, but he is going to take पंगा with you. हाँ जी, उसकी परसेप्शन है. मिसाल के तौर पे मैं कल किसी को एग्जांपल दे रहा था कि से देयर इज अ पावर प्लांट इन कश्मीर. आपसे बात हो रही थी कल. अ पावर प्लांट अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन इन कश्मीर टू सर्व द पीपल ऑफ कश्मीर. ठीक है. मेरा ख्याल है वो दूसरी क्लास में बात हो रही थी. देयर इज अ पर्सन sitting in Karachi, a citizen of Pakistan, and he is worried about that power plant. And he says, oh, new power plant coming up. I am very much interested. Because he perceives that any power plant in Pakistan is my property, my public money. And therefore I am concerned and I am a stakeholder, I should be informed. So even if anyone perceives himself to be the stakeholder, make him the stakeholder. Consider him as a stakeholder. Because if you don't, वो कल लेके आ जाएगा जलसा जुलूस. He's going to affect the project. He will, yes, of course, and we don't want to have that. So, देखिए पहली बात, identify all, and then satisfy all. Though it is a very difficult job, satisfying all the stakeholders, but yes, कम से कम पता तो हो ना कौन है. So all the stakeholders must be on a huge list. Create a huge list, no problem. But accommodate everyone somewhere. ये सबको सीट दें, सबको बैठने के लिए कुर्सी दें, छोटे को भी बड़े को भी. Okay, the operation stakeholders should be engaged and their needs identified as part of the stakeholder register. So this is the long list of stakeholders. And this also includes some attributes like, is this stakeholder positive or negative? That is the influence of the stakeholder. It could be positive or negative, should be addressed as part of the risk management plan. If it is a negative influence, it may cause threat. If it is a positive influence, it may cause opportunity. So naturally these things matter. Who can be the operational stakeholder? Our system is running, our organization is running. We have got plant operators, manufacturing, line supervisors, help desk staff. Apparently, they may not have anything to do with our project, but we must consider them. If we think that, oh, yes, we have to get in touch with the plant operators because we have to get some work done through them. Our manufacturing line supervisors will provide us some data. But say help desk staff, we don't think that they have anything to do with that project. So you must consider all the operational stakeholders. This is a small little sample list of some of the operational stakeholders. So if I go through this list, it will be convenient for me to understand if any one of these could be considered as my project stakeholder or not. Okay, from this we move on to the organizations. Okay, now we are introducing the concept of governance. What do you assume and what do you think what the governance is? Governance comes out of the word government. So what is governance?
Governance is to formalize the procedures
Formalize the procedures.
and to give them vision out to the operational staff so as to be followed in a proper manner and to be recorded and to be given as a feedback that this particular thing is being done and recorded for the future reference also.
At least you have said this thing very well, that it must be followed. That means you are mandating them, right? And they are now the official responsibility of the people. They are supposed to know what are the procedures to be followed. And if they don't follow, what happens? There must be a penalty, and there must be somebody to impose the penalty. Somebody must be checking if people are following it or not. And then, just take the rule of, traffic police. The governance structure says nobody should be able to travel without a seat belt. Let's take just this one thing. If you are not allowed to travel without a seat belt, is there a mechanism available to catch people who are not traveling with seat belts? Number two, if that mechanism is available, is that mechanism functional? Is it checking people? If it is working, then are the people being penalized for that? You see, all these steps are important because enforcement of governance can only be possible if there is proper policy. Three units are there. First is the governance mechanism itself, the people who are making the rules. Then there is a policy mechanism which checks it. And then there is a punishment mechanism, that is a judiciary. So all the things should work in a loop. If they don't, if police is corrupt, police is not checking, I mind it very much when suddenly one day, one fine morning, police becomes active and starts checking the cars. Why? Why are they checking the cars? You see,
the end of the month, sir.
for?
I mean, probably in our country, it happens at the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. That is very true. And if, in Islamabad especially, when there is a new big officer, IG, DIG, whatever, he comes in, he issues some autocratic orders. No seat belt, check seat belts now. So for next 1, 2 days, 3 days, there will be, a lot of checking about seat belt, and you can be carrying rocket launchers on top. Trust me, they won't check anything else but seat belt. I have been caught once on the seat belt, and he said, sir, आपका पासपोर्ट वो है, लाइसेंस है? मैं कहा नहीं, मेरे पास तो नहीं। उसने कहा उसकी कोई बात नहीं, आप बेल्ट का तो चलान होगा। What nonsense are you talking about? That is a bigger crime. उस पे चलान करो। नहीं, उस पे नहीं करता मैं, मुझे हुक्म इसका है। And वो हुक्म सिर्फ 3 दिन के लिए था। What kind of a policing is it? तो एक दिन इंस्ट्रक्शन आएगी, कोई और चीज चेक करनी है, आपकी जनाब वो लाइटें क्यों नहीं जल रही, बस लाइटों को पकड़ लेंगे। So this is no policy. And moreover, if they are functioning well and if they do a good job, and then it goes to the judiciary who has to punish you, and they don't function, still the purpose is failed. The whole governance mechanism goes like this. And on top of that, as we have a Senate and a Parliament, how do they function? Senate is the executive committee which issues the ordinance. President of Pakistan issues the ordinance. And who makes the law? Parliament. And that law is to be, all have to be effective. Or the person giving the orders, the person making the rules, the person checking it, and the person penalizing, penalizing people on that. So if everything will be functioning proper, that would be good. It is no fun in having good rules made when they are not to be followed by the people, not to be checked by the people, by the people, and penalized ultimately. Now, if you look at it from the organizational point of view, an organization can only be effective and successful if they have got their internal governance mechanism in place. And that would mean there must be some, proper rules must be there. Proper SOPs and rules should exist. This very first thing is missing in most of the organizations. Proper things are not there. Proper documentation is not there. Number two, there is nobody to check it. Even if there are some laws or rules or policies available within the organization, nobody knows who is checking what and why and how. And thirdly, even if somebody has checked, because there is no mechanism of punishing, even if you are punished for a minor offense and they say you will be hanged for that, that is not fine. So somebody is punished more than required, and somebody who is a big criminal is not punished at all. So within an organization, if there is a sense of justice that anybody who is not working will be penalized, and if I am working, I'll get incentive, I'll get rewards and things, then the organization's whole framework starts working. So organizations use governance to establish strategic direction and performance parameters. Two things. This governance doesn't come automatically or just germinated out of nowhere. This governance structure is attached with the organizational strategy. Your vision, your mission, direction, and all that, making yourself pointed towards that, then you create the governance structure for the success of that strategic objectives. So governance structure is in accordance with the organizational strategy and direction. And not only that, governance structure should be aligned with that, but it should give you a mechanism of check and balance, of performance parameters, how to check whether certain thing is being followed or not, how to measure it. So those must also be included. The strategic direction provides the purpose, expectation, goals, and actions necessary to guide business pursuit and is aligned with the business objectives. Project management activities should be aligned with the top level business decision. If there is a change, then project objectives need to be realigned. Project manager comes quite low. So if organizational governance structure is working, then naturally I, along with my project, is a part of the organization. I am being governed by the organizational governance structure. So whatever the performance parameters and all that rules and laws and mechanisms, I would be following that. And if I am following that, I may be at times restrained by some of the governance instructions or mechanism or laws and rules. They may hinder my progress of the project, or in some cases they may facilitate me. For example, I am asked to revise the strategy of the organization in my project. I am working on revision of the strategy and I am being governed by the strategy. How can I work? Strategy binds my hands to follow its rule and I am trying to change that rule. How can I change the rule? By following the rule. Therefore, sometimes that hinders my performance. So I should be granted special permissions not to follow that specific instruction for the time being. For example, you have to go to your offices in a uniform. Can there be some exception made for some people? Why not? If you have got a skin disease, you can't wear your uniform. Can't you be allowed by the doctor to wear your CVs in office?
I mean, that is part of governance.
That is part of governance, exactly. That is what I am saying. That those exceptions should be allowed. So a project may require you working on a special project, maybe on intelligence, and you should not be wearing the uniform, right? So it is within the governance, and this exception has been provided to this community of people, 3-4 people who are doing a special job. So those exceptions can be there. So that we'll discuss how projects accommodate within the governance mechanism of the organization. Firstly, they are supposed to follow the governance mechanism. Secondly, if any instruction in the governance mechanism is hindering the project's purpose, then they may get special permissions, and that would define the project governance. So project governance work under the organizational governance. So जी टाइम हो गया ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के आगे क्या है मेरा ख्याल है इसको हम कल ही करते हैं जी ईशा खान यहाँ तक कोई बात काबिल हजम है
It's all okay, sir.
राइट तो याद रखिएगा कल हम we will be starting from here organizations will continue with it and this chapter probably will finish tomorrow probably
Right.
okay ji thank you very much and take care
Same to you, sir. Thank you very much. Good night, sir.